All right, we'll go ahead and get started now that it's 1. So hi, everyone, and welcome to another session of our peer-to-peer summer series with New Bedford Creative. My name is Jasmyn Baird. I'm the Senior Creative Fellow with New Bedford Creative, and I want to say thank you all for joining us today. This series is geared to enrich, educate, and connect many creatives in our community. Those of you who are familiar with New Bedford, you know that we are home to many creatives and artists, entrepreneurs, community enthusiasts, etc. And so these sessions, we really wanted to embrace the pulse that makes New Bedford so unique, while also expanding our knowledge and our connections. So we wouldn't have been able to make this possible without Mass Development, TDI, and the Barr Foundation. So I want to thank them for funding this program. This is just one component of a broader TDI Creative Cities Initiative to boost arts-based economic development. So before I introduce Steven, I want to go through the format of today's session. So once I'm finished, I'll hand it over to Steven, who will present for about 15 to 20 minutes. I do recommend that if you have any questions about his presentation or just any questions about your personal projects, leave them in the chat. We'll be able to address them within the last 25 minutes of today's session and then wrap up by 2 p.m. I also ask that you all stay muted throughout the presentation. Once we open up the Q&A, you're welcome to come off mute and join the conversation. We'll be recording this session, and we've recorded many other sessions, and they all can be found on our YouTube at New Bedford Creative. So this session, it's recording now, will be found within the following week, so stay tuned for that.
Jasmyn, can I add something here? And I apologize, I didn't ask you about this earlier. Hi, everyone. My name is Margo Saulnier. I'm the creative strategist. I have the privilege of working with Jasmyn every day. And I wanted to make an announcement. This is a great announcement for New Bedford, that New Bedford has been chosen to be the place-based pilot for an initiative called the Creating Connection. It is a nationwide program that's run by Arts Midwest, and we will be hosting them for a webinar on Friday, October 1st. And we'll put that link in the chat and we'll send out an email, but I wanted everyone on here, especially if you're attending today's session on creating and distributing press releases. This Creating Connection is a messaging framework for how to communicate out to your audiences and to build more audiences. And the whole concept is how arts, culture, and creativity is a part of everyday life. So, and it's based on research and all of this exciting stuff. So that is on Friday, October 1st, and I'll post the link to register that for free in the chat. And thank you, Jasmyn, for letting me interrupt you.
No problem, that's fine. I was just actually getting ready to introduce Steven. So Steven Froias, will present to us today about marketing and promotion, but more specifically, writing and distributing press releases. So Steven, thank you so much for being here today. I'll hand it over to you to talk more about who you are, what you do, and what we will be learning today. So you can go ahead and take it away.
Okay, I will do that. Since Jasmyn thanked Mass Development's TDI and the Barr Foundation, I would like to thank Margo and Jasmyn for inviting me to do this. You know, that was great working with both of them, and they've done a terrific job putting this together. So thanks for them for doing this. So a lot of you know me, some of you don't. I actually write a lot of press releases for different organizations, one of them being New Bedford Creative. I do a lot of work for them, also the Criterion. I do some work for the New Bedford Ocean Cluster, the Port of New Bedford, Love the Avenue. So that's what I do now. But before that, I actually ran a weekly newspaper for about 12 years, 13 years. So I was on the other end. I used to receive all the press releases. So I'm going to give you the perspective from both sides as we move through this. Okay, and I'm going to talk about 4 main points, and then we'll go to the questions and answers. So we'll go right into the first point, and as you can see the blackboard behind me. By the way, Margo and I once talked about doing this before the pandemic, and I envision being on the second floor of 1213 Purchase Street, doing this at the EDC office, the NBEDC. They have those giant whiteboards. But now that we're virtual, I remember to have a chalkboard. So it's kind of fun to put this to use finally, and kind of like simulate that format that I had always envisioned. So the first thing, if you can see this, this says, please see attached. Okay, and this is what we're going to do with this. Get rid of it. Get rid of that. That is something you don't want to do anymore. Okay, now, I know a lot of you maybe who do send out press releases may be used to sending it out to your media contacts and saying, please see attached. Needs to stop. Okay, let me tell you why. The transaction you're doing is you're asking someone to actually do something for you. You need to make that as easy as possible. Okay, and since email is a text-based program, just put the text of your release right in the body of the email. And if you do that, the person receiving it can evaluate it right away. When I was at the newspaper, we used to get, I kid you not, between 300 and 500 emails a week. We didn't have time to download everything. So that really lessened the chances of a press release being seen. Now, a lot of people do it this way, and it's kind of like something that's stubbornly held on since the Microsoft Word era of the 1990s, maybe, Windows XP, remember that? And it's kind of held on, and now people say, please see attached, and they send a PDF, which are really difficult to work with. You need to get that text, which is what the people you're sending this to need, to the persons who need to see it as easily as possible. So just put the text in the body of your email. You don't have to do a lot with it either. You don't have to make it look too fancy. You don't want to format it too much, because that's all going to be undone, whether it's placed in a page layout program or a post on a website. The formatting will take care of itself. So you want to keep it simple, clean and simple. Send it in the body. Okay, now you can attach as well, and I would recommend still doing that, but not only. You need to put the text in the email, and then you can attach, and I would recommend a Word document, because unlike a PDF, a Word document you can edit. So say you're an editor and you're opening up your email, and right away you can see, oh wow, okay, I can see what this event is, I can read about it, and this is something I might use. So if you need to edit it, then you can open the Word file or copy and paste the text right from the email. It's so much more convenient. Okay, but with a PDF file, you got to download it, then you got to copy the text. Sometimes the paragraph structure gets all messed up. They're really cumbersome to deal with. And I just read recently that PDFs are kind of starting to go the way of dinosaurs. So get ahead of the game. Don't wait for that to happen. Take advantage of the fact that email is easy to use, and just put the text in the email. The New Bedford Whaling Museum does it that way. The city of New Bedford does it that way, and you should do it that way too. Another reason for that is, unlike those Windows XP days way back when, like around 2010, a lot of people now, they're working on tablets, they're working on phones, and it's really cumbersome to download a file and then kind of juggle everything. So much easier if it's just in your email. A lot of times I work, I'll be on my phone, but I could actually copy something from an email and put it in a social media account right on my phone. But it's too difficult if you have to download a PDF. So just do that. Put the text in the email and keep it simple. And what you can attach and what you should attach is an image. If you look at social media, your Facebook feed, you always see there's an image above a headline. That really brings the reader into the story. So when you send your press release, you should attach an image. Okay, just 1 to 3. Okay, unless you are providing a link to a cloud drive, a shared folder. Then if you want to put a little more, you can. But if you're just sending a simple release like an event listing, all you need is like one good image or no more than 3. Okay, so now that we've made some space, since we're getting rid of please see attached, don't use it anymore. Okay, you can use also attached, but don't use please see attached. We've got some space, so we're going to move on to number 2. Number 2 is day and date. Okay. Now, this is what this means. Day and date. I'll walk around downtown, I'll see posters, or sometimes I'll see something online, and it says, this is happening on September 21st. So many people, like myself and a lot of other people, are date challenged. They don't know when September 21st is. And, if you think about it, entire situation comedies have been written about the husband or the wife forgetting an anniversary. Why? Because it's a date. People kind of associate things with the day of the week. And if you're holding an event, and for the purpose of this, I'm kind of thinking most of us are going to be publicizing events, like an art opening or a performance or something of that nature. So important not to create confusion in the reader's mind. You want to make an instant connection. Okay, and one way to start training your brain to do that is by always remembering to put the day and the date. So you're writing about an event, make sure you put it's happening Tuesday, September 21st. Okay, and if you're using social media, rather than put tomorrow, okay, put tomorrow and the day and the date. Because a lot of times what will happen with social media, you might put tomorrow, but it's going to show up in someone's Facebook feed 2 days later. You start to feel like you're in the matrix, right? So always give the reader the tools they need to do what you're asking them to do. Okay, and it goes beyond day and date. If you say, go to our website for tickets, make sure you put the website address. If you say, call us for more information, make sure you put the phone number. You just always want to make it reader friendly, user friendly. Anything you're asking the reader to do or potential patron, you want to make sure they have the tools to do it. Okay, so it's very important to remember that during the pandemic, we love the Avenue Facebook page I run. There are a lot of restaurants up there, and they're posting, they took it on the chin. They were posting, you can call us for pickup, okay? And they weren't putting the phone numbers. They weren't putting their addresses. And I'm thinking like, it's like you need to make this easy for people reading this. You got to get it from the people's eyeballs. Same concept in the press release. If you're asking someone to do something, make sure they have the information. And it starts with day and date, but it's more about rewiring your brain. So you're always thinking about giving the reader the tools. You have to assume they know nothing about you. They don't know your address. They don't know to go to your website. You need to tell them that. Okay. And it starts with date and date. It's, again, I'll be walking down the street, I'll see a poster for something. If it's only the date, I'll look at it. I'm like, oh, when is that? I don't even know my name. So, it's really important to get that information in there. And you want to use it on your social media, your posters, your postcards, whatever you have. Make sure you're always keeping it simple, but in there. Quick anecdote about this, which is so funny. Myself and Groundwork, a couple of years back, put on the New Bedford Book Festival at Groundwork. And it was the first time it had ever been done, and Groundwork was still a little new. So we gave ourselves 2 months to publicize it. So January and February posted every day. And every day I wrote at the first ever New Bedford Book Festival, Saturday, March 6th and Sunday, March 7th at Groundwork, 1213 Purchase Street, New Bedford. Wrote that every day for 2 months. Okay, so that's 50, 60 times. Towards the end, there was this one Facebook post, and I used a quote in it, and it was kind of long. I said, well, this is too long. I said, listen, I know I got so tired of writing the date and stuff that I'll just take it out. I've written it 50 times at this point. Okay, so I deleted it, put the post up there. Within 5 minutes, someone put a comment in the comment section, and you know what it was? When is this? Okay, you can't assume that the reader's going to click through to your Facebook page and look at the hundreds of other posts you've done. Okay, you always need to give them the information they need right away. Okay, and that begins with day and date. All right, and again, it's about rewiring your brain. All right, so the next thing, getting a little deeper now, is the language you use. You always want to use inclusive language. Okay, you want to avoid things like we're holding the clam bake. My first question is who's where? You know, you want to use the name of your organization. So you want to put say New Bedford Creative, for example. So NB Creative is okay. If you put we, you're separating people into two camps. There's we're doing this, okay, and that's not really very welcoming. But so you want to keep it neutral. You want to make sure your language is neutral or inclusive and not exclusive. Because we is like us and them, and it's something, we're a clubhouse, we're doing this, you're lucky if we're going to invite you. No, you want to make it really welcoming, very welcoming. So you always want to keep the language neutral or inclusive. And one of the things I've noticed with some press releases I've seen, which I really don't care for, is if you receive grant money, a lot of times the press release will start, so-and-so is proud to announce they've received $25,000. That's very exclusive, because right away you're going to turn a lot of people off. Okay, because a lot of people are going to say, well, where's my $25,000? What you want to do, okay, is make it inclusive by talking about what you're going to do with the money, because that's really should be the point of your press release. You want to create the space for the reader or potential patron to enter. So you're better off saying, I think, for example, when New Bedford Creative got $500,000 from the Barr Foundation, what we wrote was more public art, more musicians, and more opportunities for local artists to realize their dreams will be made possible by a $500,000 investment in New Bedford Creative by the Barr Foundation. Okay, so we immediately started opening up that space that people reading could put themselves into. It wasn't about us. Okay, it wasn't about New Bedford Creative getting the money. It was about what that was going to do for the reader. Okay, that's language that includes people. And that's what you always want to look for to do with your press releases, and include people. I read something recently from an organization, and it said, "Call me for tickets." They actually had the phone number. But my first thought was, "Who's me?" Okay, okay. So again, that was very obviously that was very inside. Whoever wrote it thought like, well, everyone's going to know who I am. No, the reader knows nothing. You always assume the reader knows nothing. The potential patron knows nothing. You have to make sure, call Steven Froias at Bedford Creative for tickets or something. Okay? You always want to make sure your language is including people. Because if it's not, it could potentially turn people off. Or you're just not going to expand, your potential audience. Okay? So do that. So, and then finally, what I want to talk about I haven't talked about length, like how long your press releases should be. Now, again, assuming that most of the people here are going to be writing press releases about specific events, they could be as long as a paragraph, like 1 to 200 words, to 400 words or 600 words. You probably don't want to go much beyond 600 words unless it's something that's called a feature release, where you might be interviewing someone or you have to get kind of like in depth about a new program. Like when we wrote the press release for this, it was a little longer. There's a lot to cover. Okay. But generally speaking, between 300 and 600 words is good for a press release that should get all your main points. And like I said, unless it's a feature release, then 800 is the top. You never want to go more than 800. Newspapers don't have the room for it. Even people don't want to post it sometimes because it's too long. Okay, there are some exceptions to that. I do a couple of like what's called feature releases, where I do a feature every quarter for the EDC. And that's longer, but it's designed to be a long form read. I just did recently one for AHA on Star Store's 20th anniversary, and that was feature one. That was like 1,500 words. Some of the stuff on New Bedford Light, they do long feature stories, which are 1,200 to 1,500. You never want to do that. Okay, you want to stick within that either paragraph or an event listing, which is about 1 to 200 words, or 300 to 600 for a release, and maybe 800 if it's a feature release. Okay, but whether you're doing one paragraph or 800 words, within your release, you want to have something I call the paragraph. Okay. The paragraph is one paragraph in your release, no matter what size it is, that has all the information the reader needs to execute what you're asking them to do. Okay. So if it'll have the day and date, the place where your event is happening, with the address, place to buy tickets, whether it's online or via phone call, whatever you need. Whatever the reader needs to do to take part in that event will be contained in one paragraph somewhere in your release. The importance of that is if you send out your release and maybe the media outlet isn't going to run the whole thing, but they have an event listing, they can pull the paragraph out, put it right in their event listing. It's easy for them to do. It's not as much editing or reading or rewriting at all. And journalists are really lazy, trust me. Well, they're overworked, that's why. So they can pull a paragraph out that has all the information necessary. It makes it a lot easier, and it's going to increase the opportunity that your press release is going to be printed, posted, what have you. Even if they run the full release, sometimes a good editor will look for a paragraph and say, oh, okay, this checks all the boxes. This has, when the event is taking place, day and date, where it's taking place with the address, how you can get tickets, or go to the website for more information, whatever. And keep that within one paragraph. If you're writing a 600-word release, you can have it in more than one place. I mean, you should have one paragraph, but you can have elements of that information. I like to kind of like, when I do a release, kind of hit people 3 times. So I might somewhere in the intro put the day and date of the event, have the paragraph somewhere, and then at the conclusion, reiterate the important information, which is usually the day and date and how to get tickets. The tickets are necessary. I like to hit it 3 times. But somewhere in one paragraph, you want to have all of that information because you can just pull it out. If you look at like South Coast Almanac, they do this 8 great things to do. So they're getting your release. They can just pull out a paragraph. Well, this, and they say, "Wow, this is a great thing to do." We can just pull out the paragraph. We're done. Makes their job easier, makes your job easier, and it's also important because it'll focus your mind. So when you're telling people about your event, you can just refer to your own paragraph. Okay. What's also good about the paragraph, and it's including, the day and date and the inclusive language we talked about. When you do a Facebook event listing, this is where your paragraph goes. You want to do the work once and use it many times. So if you're writing a release, it's going to help you in your social media too. You don't want to do a separate write-up for your Facebook event. And you also don't want to just rely on Facebook. Sometimes they change the format. It's hard to read when things take place, or the address is not very visible. So if you have your paragraph ready with all the necessary information, you put that in your event listing, you're covered. Okay, so that's good. So those are the 4 basic things. And now I'll open it up to questions that you might have. And the one thing I haven't covered, which I want someone to ask me, is where and who you should be sending your press releases to. So someone can ask me that.
Thank you so much, Steven. I'm gonna go ahead and address the questions that were asked while you were presenting. So Patty Rigo had asked, while you were talking about attachments and images, is there any preference of horizontal or vertical images in file type?
Excellent question. You get a gold star. Yes. Almost everything you do nowadays, again, if you look online, you look at your social media, all the images are horizontal. So they should be horizontal. Sometimes vertical images are very hard to work with. So unless unless it's a print project and you've spoken to the editor, you're better off going with horizontal. Okay. So that's a good question, because actually that's something when I used to run the newspaper, sometimes I would get a lot of inappropriate images. I mean, they're like really long and vertical, and they're kind of hard to place even in print. They're impossible to place in a website, or the resolution was bad. And I noticed someone is talking about 300 dpi here. So there are different standards for images. For the web or digital, 72 dpi is enough. But if you are going for a print project, 300 dpi is what they need. Okay. So you're better off, if you're sending just one image, make it 300 dpi, because someone else can always bring it down when they format it for the web, and but they can't bring it up. So you're better off going with 300 dpi, only sending one image. If you're sending a couple, you can put a 72 dpi one for the web, and then a 300 dpi for print. Give them, attach them both if you have that capability.
And Den had asked, how about embedding the image within the email?
Now, some people do that. I'd rather not. I'd rather see images attached. It just, and very important, make sure you name your image when you attach them. Name of your organization or the same headline as the press release. Make sure you name them. Sometimes there's an error in translation with attachments, and then when you embed, I just prefer to have them as attachments. That's usually the best way to go.
Thank you. Margo, I'm going to read your comment. When I worked at the Boston Symphony 10 years ago, all their press releases had headlines in all caps. Is this an old school format that we don't need to follow anymore? Also, at the end of press releases, do we need to put the hashtag symbol or pound symbol or 30? Why?
Excellent questions. Even today, sometimes I'll get press releases with all caps headlines. I don't get that. That's annoying. Yeah, you don't want to do that. You want to do upper and lower case. Just look around. If you look at the stuff that's arriving in your news feed, none of it is all caps. So I don't know why people keep sending it like that. Every now and again, most people don't, but every now and again I'll get one. But it's definitely old school. Maybe sometimes newspapers, when they had a very busy front page, would have some in all caps, but I don't think too many places do all caps now, unless it's part of their design choice. But it's easier, again, with it, just like with the DPI, it's easier to highlight something and you can actually change it to all caps, but it's kind of hard to change it back. So send it upper and lower case. And the hashtags at the end, yes. Um, that's a good place to either at the top before your press release begins, or when your press release ends, if you put a couple of hashtags. Speaking of old school, I still do the old newspaper thing where I put a hyphen, 30 hyphen, and then under that is where you can put your captions for your pictures if you have any, or any additional things you'd like to, tell the editor or whoever's reading it. You put that under the hashtags or under the 30 mark, and that's a good place for that. So you can still definitely use those.
Thank you. Margo had also asked, where and who should we send press releases to?
That's an excellent question. You get a gold star. So yeah, so this is another big part of our thing, of our presentation, because let me say, first of all, the first place you want to send your press release to is to yourself. And here's what I mean by that. If your organization, or even you as an individual, have a website, you should have a news, press, or blog section. Okay, and this goes back to that thing of doing the work once and having it do a lot of work for you. If you put your own press releases on your website with your image, your website is always up to date. It's a reason. Sometimes that's something that can go by the wayside in organizations, especially if you don't have a lot of capacity. Your website can maybe have the last event you did a year ago, but if you're always putting your press materials up there, you're keeping it up to date. So for anyone searching you out, they're not going to find an out-of-date website. And then and then if you're sending your press release out, you might find that if someone doesn't know who you are, say you're sending it to a news outlet, say you're sending it to WJR10, someone wants to check up on you, they want to see that your website's kind of up to date. So if you're presenting the same information on your website as you're sending around, it's a good thing. And then if worse comes to worse and you send out a press release and no one runs with it, and don't feel bad because, sometimes, there's a lot of information out there. Like I said before, if I ran the newspaper, I get hundreds of releases, and use a lot of the material. But it always stuck in my mind when someone was doing something right over time. And so I was kind of like, okay, at some point I have to find a way to fit, these people in. They're doing everything right. Just keep sending it. But if someone doesn't use it, you can just share it from your own website. So it's important to do that. Okay, so that's number one, send it to yourself. Number two, that's when we start to get into a gray area because, there have been so many changes in media these days. Newspapers aren't as robust as they used to be. And there are some digital outlets, fortunately. So you basically want to, depending on the type of event, you want to send it to as many places as possible within reason. If you're doing like a solo acoustic music event at, say, Poor Farm Tavern, you just want to send it to the very local stuff. You don't want to be sending to Boston Globe or something like that. It's a little too far out. But if you're doing a full season of theater or dance performances or maybe a whole summer sound series, then you want to go a little further out. So search out TV, radio, newspaper. Newspapers don't make it easy. Number one question I always get people asking me is, who should I contact at the Standard Times? This is an industry problem, not a Standard Times problem. As an industry, for some reason, daily newspapers have never been very user-friendly. I've actually read articles about this. So you got to kind of like search their website, see if they have a place to contact the editor. Most of the generic websites. You're better off looking at bylines of people who are writing, things that you're doing, in that subject. People who are writing about arts and culture or something like that. And so like, oh, this writer writes about some of the stuff I'm doing. And then usually you'll see their email address and email them directly. Okay, and you can ask, don't be afraid to ask, say, um, should I send this to you or is there a better address? And start building your media file. It's something you want to like cultivate over time. Don't feel pressure to get every email address for every media outlet in the area, but always think about it. Always think about adding to it. In our area, we have South Coast Almanac, South Coast Insider, New Bedford Light, Standard Times, Neighborhood News, the radio station, WBSM, New Bedford Guide, all these places. So there's actually a lot of places in Fall River, WXAR, Fall River Herald. Send it to them separately. I know Herald and Standard Times are the same, but if you find different email addresses for each one, increases your chance of it getting picked up. They do run different things. So there's just keep that list going and always be looking to add to it. There's a lot of publications in Rhode Island, near the border, in Bristol, or so, if you're out and about and you see it, pick it up, bring it home with you. Look, scour it for email addresses, add it to your media list. It's something you constantly got to keep on top of because it does change. Look at some of the changes that Standard Times, with the turnover in staff, so just be aware of that. But there are other places too, like the Whaling Museum and like say the National Park. You should be sending press releases to all 6 New England states because those are really big destination places. Some of the stuff New Bedford Creative does is like really region-wide. So, your media list could go pretty far depending on the size of your organization. Okay. Let's see what else we got.
Vieira Levitt left 2 questions here. So the first one is it okay to send the link for the images or rather attach them? And then the second question is, does the press release still have to have a date and location at the beginning?
Okay, yeah, so the link to a shared folder or cloud drive, that's totally fine. That's okay. You don't necessarily have to attach the links. I thought I had mentioned that, but maybe it didn't come through. Yeah, you can just provide a link to a shared folder. That's good too. I would curate that folder. You don't want to, pick your best images. You can obviously put a little more. You're not emailing, so you don't have to stick to the 1 to 3 rule. If you want to have 10 images, that's fine. I'm going to go crazy and have 50 images because, no one's going to take the time to look through them all probably. Pick out 10 to 12 good ones on a shared folder or cloud drive link. So that's good. And the other question about having the date, are you talking about putting the date at the top of your press release?
Yeah.
If you have an event? Yeah. Oh, yeah, Javier. Yeah, if you're having an event, yeah, you probably want to get it close to the top, depending on your intro, or you want to have it probably within the first 3 paragraphs. Okay. If you've got some kind of jazzy intro that leads the reader into it, as long as you hit it by the 3rd paragraph, and then pick it up again in the middle, and then at the end, you're good. Okay.
I mean the release date, and somebody else had similar question. Like who like if we are sending it by email, doesn't it really matter what release date we put there? Like, isn't it kind of old-fashioned to say like?
Oh, the release date. Yeah, I mean, personally, what I like to do? I do like to see that included in the email, and I'll tell you why. Again, going back to the fact that some people may be getting hundreds of emails. If you put a date and for that, you don't have to put a full day and date. You can just do 9.21.2021 in your subject field when you send an email. It just kind of helps the person receiving the email to keep track of stuff. So I like that idea. I would continue to do that. Not every old school idea is a bad one. Some of them are pretty good. You know, that's a nice way of helping the recipient of your email kind of like know at a glance the order it came in. I like that.
I think the next question was from Marissa, who I think asked a similar question. So Marissa, if you are all set, I'll move on to the next question. If not, just mention something in the chat.
Well, that actually brings, I'm glad to see Melissa's name up there, or Lisa's name up there, because be aware too of when you send out your press releases. You want to make sure there's enough time, and you have to recognize that, you know, like outlets like the South Coast Almanac, they need a lot of lead time. Okay, you know, they publish, you know, far ahead of time. So if you have the ability to say, okay, I'm planning this for, you know, next April or January, or February or April, and you can send something, you know, give them the heads up right away, you know, because it's not something, if you're having an event in 2 weeks, it's not going to make the magazine sometimes. Although they're doing, like I said, that great monthly thing that they do with the 8 great things, and doing some digital stuff. But, you know, you might want to check, you know, when they need submissions by. Okay. Typically, the rule of thumb for just straight event listings, you want to get it to the media outlets about 2 weeks before the event. Don't send it 3 days before. That's awful. Because you're probably not going to see it in print or sometimes even posted, because someone has to go through all the effort of creating that web page for something that's going to be done in a day or 2 days. You know, you want to get it something like that, 2 weeks, 10 days tops to the thing. And depending on the size of the event, like I mentioned, the book festival, we were publicizing that for 2 months. So it all depends on what you're doing.
I think they had asked another question. I think asking for clarification if you said that they should send individual emails to each media or sending all at once.
Oh, you can send all at once, you know. Yeah, unless you know, I would send it as a blind copies BCC, so everyone thinks they're special. But you can send them all at once. The only reason you would send it separately is if you're reaching out to someone for a special reason. Like I just mentioned, the South Coast Almanac, you know, you might want to reach out to them separately. They might have a different, you know, posting and publication schedule than a typical website or newspaper. Okay. So, but it's okay to just, again, you want to do the work once, so you can send it all out. Yeah, you know, take your media list, dump it in your BCC people, send it out.
Okay, so far that sums up the questions within the chat. We have about 15 minutes, so if there are any other questions, feel free to ask. Any current press releases anyone is working on that they want to ask Steven, it would be a good time to ask.
I have a question about media lists. If you're new to starting a media list, any advice on how to format and what, I mean, clearly I think email is the most important, but any way to format it?
Personally, I keep it simple. I just keep mine in a Google Doc file. You know, I'm not like a spreadsheet person. So, you know, I know some people might have it in a spreadsheet, but I just like to have them in a Google Doc, because, you know, I'm always looking at it. Sometimes I'll take a name out if I don't think it's having any effect, and I'll add a new one. So that's just my preferred method. And whatever you're comfortable with. I like I said, a lot of people have a spreadsheet with that stuff, but, you know, I just like to keep it simple.
Patty has her hand up.
just trying to use all these Zoom functions. They have this new thing with apps now. That's crazy. Hi, Steven, how are you? So I have a question. I have been putting, oh, let me put my hand down too. I have been, doing the copying my press release in the email. So I felt really good about that. But I often like have a little header, like a little intro email, like, dear so-and-so submitted for your consideration. Like, is that just completely superfluous? Is it okay to just like literally launch right into the press release?
No, I mean, look, if no, that's perfectly fine. I wouldn't make it very long.
No, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But if it's just like a line, introducing, that's okay.
Okay.
Every organization is different. But that's perfectly acceptable.
I just wasn't sure if they were like, no, we're gonna throw this one out.
Yeah, that's the creative touch. So, you don't have to do it, but if you want to do it, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I don't, but I occasionally will put something in like, your publication might find this interesting because of XYZ, like if there's something specific, but.
Fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
This was awesome. Thank you.
Cool. All right.
He said, how do you feel about putting the press list in your
Yeah.
regular email blast, but tagged as press? I just want to read it out loud because this may be in the recording. That way you can send the press release to the press segment, but they also see the other emails to the list.
I mean, personally, I like to keep it separate because I think they have separate functions. I noticed someone recently, large organization in our area is kind of just sending out press releases in this way with an email blast. I'm not really a big fan of that. I think, like Patty just asked about the personal, note to whoever you're sending it to. I think for media, you got to send it directly to them as a press release. If it's just an email blast, I'm afraid it's just going to get overlooked. Okay, and some editors or people who make news judgments might look and say, okay, well, they have an email list, what do they need that for? This is not special. I like to keep it a little special because it people are picking up your information, sharing it. They want to feel like they're offering their readers something about it that's different. So I would rather keep it separate. I think it's definitely a good practice to do a separate thing. Have your email blast and then have your press release separate. Okay.
Can I have a question? So if you have if I say separate press release with attached press text and the image, is what's gonna inspire the journalist to open it if there's no picture or anything right there?
Well, if it's a good journalist, they don't need to be inspired. They need to find out. So, no, I'm just being honest. Like I said, when I read the newspaper, I was looking for interesting things. So whoever sent that information, to the newspaper I ran in the easiest possible way for me to make a judgment call on that, got more attention. And I think that's probably the same for a lot of people, probably even more so now, because there are a lot more people working in that field. So they're doing more. They're doing more all the time. They don't have as much time to devote to things. So, just, keep that in mind. Yeah, if they're good, they're gonna be inspired. You don't have to make it all fancy and stuff. That's their job. Their project's job, whether it's a website or a TV show or a radio thing, they'll add their own excitement, or they'll know what's exciting. You don't have to put candy in it for them.
So does it mean that the subject has to be really good or just factual, just like this exhibition in the here, like?
Well, no, definitely make you definitely want to make your writing good. You want to make it compelling. Because if it's something that can't just be picked up and run as is, that's great. But you don't have to worry about flashy graphics and stuff like that. Okay, I think what you're asking me whether you need to appeal to the radio station person or the editor, you don't have to worry about impressing them so much. You just need to, give them your release, and they'll put the flash into it. Because, sometimes they have different ways of doing that. They might want to put, stuff, whatever, but don't worry about that. Yeah. You don't have to worry about impressing them. It's your list. Don't worry about it. So I just wanted to go over for a second. So please see attached, no more of that, okay? Day and date, very important to always give the reader the information they need to complete the task you're asking them to do, okay? And that starts with day and date, but it goes through to everything. If you're saying visit your website, make sure you have your website address. If you're saying call or email, make sure you have your phone number, always be aware of that, okay? Use language that's inclusive, try to find a way to create space for the reader to put themselves into the narrative you're telling, and make sure you have that one paragraph that has all the information that the reader needs to sample whatever yourself, okay? So, that's it. And you can use that for many different things.
Can I just have a quick question? Is your website and opening hours of free to public, should that be on the top or on the bottom?
Well, it depends on every release. You can have a standard thing at the bottom. For a place like CVPA, usually you have the hyphen at the bottom and it's got CVPA hours are. Depends on the event. It depends on what you're writing about, but you can have just a standard slug, I call it, down at the bottom.
Okay, like a signature, so I can have that. I don't need to have it on the top.
Yeah, open every day, 11 to 8 or whatever, whatever you want.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
You may have already gone over this. Did you talk about for immediate release versus embargoed?
No, I have not. Yeah. Okay. Oh, you know your stuff, Margo. Okay.
Because I read your press releases, Steven. That's why.
Thank you. Okay. What Margo is referring to is, sometimes you will send something and you want it to, obviously be published right away or as soon as possible. But the city of New Bedford does this a lot. They'll release something, but it's embargoed, meaning it's to be held until a certain date. So if you say, gee, I don't want this to be released until, a lot of times the mayor, for example, will have a news conference about something. So they'll alert the media. That's a catchphrase people might know about, alert the media. So the media is alerted, but they don't want what's being discussed reported on until after the press conference. So it's embargoed. So say Mayor Mitchell is going to have talk about offshore wind at 11 a.m. tomorrow. He might send a notice out to all media, but it's embargoed until after the event. It's probably not going to come up too often in what you do, but it might. If you're going to make some big announcement, say, gee, we want, South Coast Foundation, Kim's outfit, Kim Godard, they might say, we want everyone to be at our office tomorrow. We're going to make a big announcement about this year's grant awards, but we don't want that reported on until the recipients receive the awards. So you would send that to media, but you would state, embargoed until after the event, after the press event. Okay, so that's the difference. Everyone get that?
I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. I know she had her hand up for a question.
Hi, thank you, Steven, for sharing your best practices with us. So besides including all the elements that you gave us today, what are other ways that you measure how effective your press release was after the fact, after it's gone out?
Okay. I would say there are a couple of ways to measure that. Probably first and foremost, getting back to that day and date slug is whether it contained all the information the potential patron needed to know. Okay, sometimes people will say, gee, have you heard about this going on? I wanted to go, but it doesn't say X, Y, or Z. You want to make sure, so one measure of success is if you say, I am doing this at this time, this is how you can participate, this is what you need, this is where it is. If you have all the, if you have all the information, that's a good measure of success. If you hear about it and people say, gee, I read about that in the paper and it sounds exciting, that means, the writing was good and it made people excited to attend, participate or something. And that just depends on, the skill of the writer or the capacity of your organization to get a little fancy. That would be kind of cool. Some of the stuff I do for the Criterion is not strictly a press release. It's what's called a feature release, where I'll interview some of the performers. For example, I just interviewed a fellow named Quinn Sullivan. He's performing on Saturday, October 30th at the Criterion. And he's this amazing musician. He's only 22. He's been performing since he was 8 years old, playing the guitar. He was playing the guitar on stage with Buddy Rich at the Criterion when he was 8. And then he been on stage with Eric Clapton, Carlos Santana. He's really cool. So so that's a feature release. So, I had some fun with that. It was fun interviewing him, and he's got some great stories, and he's a really talented musician. So, if I get feedback from that, it's like, wow, that was a great piece about Quinn. And, I didn't realize he's been performing since he was 11 years old. That's a good measure of success when people are invested in the story,
Okay.
and that depends on what type of release you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right. So we are close to the 2 p.m. mark. I'll probably close it up now. But if you have any questions for Steven, I'll be following up in an email with his contact and any attachments that he has for you guys. So I'll be sure to get that out to you within the next couple of days. But Steven, I want to thank you for your hard work on this. I'm sure we all enjoy it. So thank you for that. And then also thank you to our guests for today, our attendees for joining us. Thank you to Mass Development TDI and the Barr Foundation for making this possible. And like I said, the recording will be found on our YouTube at New Bedford Creative within the next week. So be on the lookout. And Patty had mentioned hashtag bring back blackboards. I agree. Also with Patty. So thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.